Welcome to House of Bakshi, the podcast where we delve into the world of luxury and fashion e-commerce, uncovering the strategies and stories that drive success. I'm your host, Habib Bakshi, CEO and founder of Sky Diamond Elite. In each episode, I'll share insights, news, industry-wide challenges, and proven solutions. We will also have the privilege of sitting down with titans in fashion and luxury e-commerce to learn from the best and discover what sets luxury, fashion, and lifestyle DTC brands apart. Whether you're a marketer, a brand owner, or simply someone passionate about fashion, this podcast is going to be your backstage pass to the world of luxury e-commerce. All right. Faye, thank you for doing this.
You're very welcome.
Nico called me and he's like, "Hey, Habib, I'm building this podcast for Sky Diamond, per your directives. And, who should we have as our inaugural guests?" So I had a short list and you were on there and for many reasons. But one of the core reasons was, we have these kind of threads that are integral that have been part of our tapestry, right? As a company. There's a lot of glitz and glam now as we've created some really cool divisions in terms of who we're servicing, fashion and luxury, and all of that. But what has been kind of the soul and heart of how, we've come up as a brand is not through the glitz and glam, but through the grit, right? And grind. And that's what you represent.
Yes, we are. Grit and grind.
Grit and grind. And that's who we are at our core. And you're essential in supporting our growth. And we were just chatting about that across the street. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't put a timeline together of how long we've been working together. And holy hell, you said 15 years. I was a kid.
I think it's 15 years, right?
Yeah. I'm 38. I was in my 20s, right? Looking for partners to believe in us and what we, could do at that time. And you took, a chance on this kid and our crew, and super appreciative for that.
Oh.
Yeah. I told him, I'm going to get emotional.
Well, no, that's really sweet. I mean, and I look at it from, you came to me and said, "Hey, I know you know what we do," right? We were working together a little bit, but I don't think you know what we can do, right? And so you showed me. Right. And then we just added, and then we added, and then we added, and then we added. And you hire the best people. You set me up with a great team. And I mean, it's so nice because it has been so mutual between us, right? And our companies, because you've helped take us to a level that we would never be at.
Thank you.
We
certainly
would, we would not be there. And that's what really it's one of our a big competitive advantage we have.
Yeah. I mean, it's emotional for me for so many reasons because it's, we built this amazing business and it's beyond business for us.
Right.
And shit, sorry. We've been through a lot. Was a subset of clients that we've grown this company with. And when I say tapestry, it truly is that. I mean, we have a lot of glitz and glam today, and we service, 50 plus really amazing clients. I've done now a few podcasts, and it hasn't, all of them are very special, but it hasn't had this even initial impact of oh my God, we're here today because we've provided this kind of exceptional value and we've built this culture, which you recognized when we were a shop of 2-3 people, right? And I remember when Kevin Small brought me to your office.
Right.
And, you said, hey, here's our problem. Can you fix this? And it was a very small challenge at that time. And for us, it was still a big challenge, right?
Right.
And just thank you for that. And I wrote
Of
something, and before I
course.
do your introduction, I wrote something that I wanted to read.
This is going to make me emotional.
It shouldn't. So, I was like thinking about how to start or intro this particular podcast. So it starts like this. So let me tell you a secret. And the tapestry of our brand story, threads woven by clients like Faye, are not just invaluable, they're foundational. Faye, your journey and trust in our talent collective over these 10 plus years symbolizes a relationship that goes beyond business. Your story is imbued with resilience, loyalty, and a shared vision for excellence, mirroring the ethos of our brand. While EHS might not walk the high fashion runway, it strides confidently on the runway of reliability, consistency, and profound impact. And we couldn't be prouder to have been walking alongside you for the past decade. It's imperative to highlight voices like Faye's that have been our silent strength and support. Faye, your presence here is not about fitting a mold, it's about breaking it. And I just want to celebrate this decade-long journey with you.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Oh, awesome.
I mean, we are a day-to-day business.
Yeah.
Right. And, again, it's like we talked about it a little bit in a kind of maybe boring type business, student housing.
Yeah.
It's dirty. It's competitive.
It's very competitive and it's very dirty.
And we have so many advantages that other companies don't have.
Right.
Right. And a lot of it is what you guys have brought to us and how you've set us up. And, we're honest, we're very customer service oriented, but we can keep up with all of that.
Right.
Because the bones are there, right? You helped us set up the bones.
Absolutely.
So we can keep up with that when other people may not be able to.
Beautifully said. And I want to make sure that I give you a proper introduction right before we even get started.
Okay.
So you have been leading this incredible force of student housing within this insanely competitive industry for how many years now?
I've been with the company for 25 years.
25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for the millennials and for the Gen Zers listening, that's loyalty, right? That is doubling down on a vision, on a team's culture, the people around you to kind of perpetuate success, which you don't see today. And you really don't build anything amazing or great without having that level of commitment. It just doesn't happen. Right. And
I will say for the Gen Zers and the millennials that I didn't start out leading this team of people, right? I was brought in to a building that wasn't finished. Like half of the building was done. There was construction going on in the other half, and students were living there. And I was brought in to live in the building, manage the building, and get the construction done while students were living there.
So your role has been consistently evolving into
absolutely.
From jack of all trades, it sounds like, to now
jack of all trades. Because if there was a room that was dirty when someone came in, I was there scrubbing the shower.
No shit. Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. I had a group of kids who used to call me the shop vac girl because the building would flood and I would be up there with a shop vac getting the water off the hallways. I was 24/7 in that building, right? And then I'm touring the parents and touring the students and meeting them there and then seeing them at check-in, right? And seeing how stressed they are when they weren't stressed during the tour, but stressed because they're bringing their child, they're coming to New York, they're dropping them off for school for the first time.
Yeah.
Sort of seeing the whole process and the emotions, right? That people go through.
Yeah.
And then making sure everything was okay so they would leave being like, we feel really good.
I mean,
then I have their student, for the 9 months or whatever, and that's a whole another set of issues. But that's how I started with the company.
Truly incredible. And we kind of met in the middle of that journey. And I just remember how, and we'll go into some Q&A, but just to kind of wrap up your intro, I remember you looking at me and telling me how insanely competitive this business was, and me having no freaking idea, or like kind of being like, okay, how competitive could it really be?
Exactly.
How competitive could this student housing business really be? And holy shit, what a wake-up call to understand that there are the dirtiest of dirty game players.
Mm-hmm.
There are a ton of fake profits.
Right.
There are few and far between of legitimate players, and EHS being the most, not just legitimate, but the authority in your business today.
Right.
And you've done an incredible job kind of putting the right partners together. And part of the Q&A and interview process that I want to do with you to help people see the other side, and why this podcast is going to be uniquely different from the other ones that I've done. I think it's going to be important for individuals to see and hear how decision making is done. Kind of give them, like, I want the listeners to have a glimpse of how you think, right? And how you select your partners. What methodology do you use? How do you do it? And like you literally have this wide expanse of just killers around you. And
I do.
You do.
I'm so lucky. Mm-hmm.
How do you do that? I mean, we're a part of that, a little part of that pie, but you have these like dimensional layers of just assassins.
I think the big thing that comes to my mind to answer that question is trust, right? Like, there's trust. I think you're going to find out pretty quickly if something's going to work, if it's not going to work.
Right.
Definitely if it's not going to work, right? And you don't stick with it. But, you saying Kevin Small, right, introduced you to us. Mm-hmm. It's finding the person, the people that you trust to bring in more people. Yeah. And recommend. And I trust it. If it doesn't work, I mean, I challenge people, of course, like, that's not good. That's not going to work for me. That's on, the West Coast, and we need somebody on the East, sure, Eastern Standard Time to deal with our website or things like that. But what's the process of trust, though? Like, I understand. So I think it's being able to be very transparent with someone, right? Like, I can sit and talk to you and say, I can tell you what I don't know, and I don't feel stupid about telling you what I don't know. Sure. So that kind of trust, like, I have no idea how to do this, but this is what I want the end result to be. Got it. And so I can say with Sky Diamond, you've assembled this amazing team for me that hits on a lot of different areas. If one person doesn't know, we ask this person, or we ask this person, right? And I see that in other companies that I work with. Yeah. It's, again, the trust. If I can be comfortable to tell someone what I don't know, and they can be comfortable telling me what they don't know, and we can figure it out together, or they can be comfortable, it's about, I guess, transparency, right? Here's my observation. My observation of over the last 15 years of how you make decisions, this is puristically my opinion, is I think there's a lot of similarity between how you and I operate, and it shows in the way you select your partners, and it really has to do, again, my opinion, is I think you look at character a lot. I do. Where the trust comes into. Yes, right. It's that absolutely. Soft value of, who am I talking to? Is there sincerity? And it's just from the people you surround yourself with. I mean, Jill being one of them, right? Right. I mean, working with her, I look at the chemistry between the two organizations, right? And Sky Diamond being, the example that I have in front of me. I don't know how the other ones operate, but I can only imagine, because I look at our team's chemistry with your team's chemistry, and it just matches. So I'm like, man, we must be hiring similarly
internally, and our decision-making process is probably the same. And fundamentally, I think it comes down to character.
It comes down to character, and I think caring about the same thing, right? So we've already said, I mean, student housing can be like, you know, a boring business perhaps for some, but I really care about it. I'm very passionate about it. I take ownership to it because I've been there for so long. So I really take ownership to what goes on there and how things operate. So for me, hiring someone, I want to see that same passion.
Yeah.
Right? And like, again, you guys will come to me with ideas like, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? I'm like, no, I haven't because you care. You're thinking about it, right?
100%.
I'm not working with people who are just sitting there waiting for me to ask them to do something.
Right.
It's always interactive. And like
proactivity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you know the story with Jill, right?
Yes. Yes. I mean, I know the story of Jill. I mean, wasn't Kevin didn't he live in one of the student housing?
I don't really know. He might have for a while.
I think so.
He might have for a while.
You were just surrounded by kids that turned into your partners.
So it was George Scott who brought Kevin in.
That's right.
Who brought this kid in.
Right.
He was the kid.
He was the kid
that he met out at, I don't know, Le Cirque or somewhere, right? He met Kevin out and just really liked this kid.
Yeah.
Thought, this kid can do something for us. And I remember thinking, because I wasn't really around. I was actually on maternity leave when Kevin came in to really dive into like our website and all of that.
Yeah.
And I came back and I'm like, who's this kid?
Yeah. And just to give context,
I was a little like, who's this kid? And then, you know, you fall in love with Kevin.
To give context to our listeners, Kevin Small is probably the top digital consultant in the nation for anything and everything high end.
Right.
And luxury.
And student housing.
And student housing. You're the exception, for all of us, right? We look through our client portfolio, we're like, EHS, and then fashion, luxury. Which is nice. I mean, I like it. I mean, again, it goes back to that grit, right? It's for everyone on our team, observing what we do for you. And again, starting with like one little thing to now, I mean, I don't even know. It's like a menu of 10 things we do. And we have different divisions, different division heads. You just met our division head, Rob, for AI today and Nico for our brand. I mean, it's kind of incredible to just see the evolution of how, you know, you've partnered with us and the trust you put in. So full stop, thank you. Right, first and foremost.
And thank you.
Absolutely.
I mean, because it's been a really great and exciting journey. It has.
Super exciting. And a lot of ups and downs. And I mean, one thing I wanted to talk about was Liz Williams, right? I think that's such a cool topic. You know, you came to me and you said, hey, Habib, you know, I want to start doubling down on automation. And I have, you know, these hundreds of thousands of leads coming in. We need help. And do you have somebody that can help me with Pardot and Salesforce? Luckily, the timing was right. We were also focusing on trying to build that division, but we were talking about false prophets, right? And fake prophets. I had one of those. And you are one of the, you know, very honest people to help me kind of figure out that, hey, Habib, you have a false prophet in your ecosystem. And, you know, I'm not going to mention names, but, you know, we put a lot of faith in her to help us grow that division. And we introduced you to her. And, you know, it was just systematic set of failures that she provided us with and you with. And I'm bringing this up because out of that failure was born one of the best parts of our relationship that we have, and it's Liz Williams, who has built our marketing automation division for Sky Diamond and is a trusted resource for you.
And she's built ours.
And she's built yours. And so it's like, man, it was a bumpy road getting there. And going back to that transparency and trust, like you doubled down on. Again, thank you. And that's why I get emotional. I'm like, shit, you know, you again trusted me to fix the problem for you. Right. And which, you know, I had every objective to. And again, we just, you know, appreciate that trust. And we came out just guns a-blazing, killing it.
Right.
And so going back to the 15 years, how do you let me backtrack. You remain a titan. Your organization, you yourself, you have been personally through a shit ton of trials and tribulations.
Yes.
We'll get into that. But at a high level, your audience every 5 to 6 years changes their habits on how they search for you, try to find you, their decision making. And this business is nasty. What's the formula, right? To kind of stay ahead? Like what's your personal secret sauce, right? And I think is your like formal, I know you're jack of all trades, but your formal title is Vice President of Sales and Marketing. Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah. So what is it that you do to like stay on trend?
Well, one thing, I surround myself with the right people, right? And the right teams. But I think for me, it's a lot of, I went to one of those, I don't know, not seminars, but I guess like a seminar once on a Gen Z, or no, it was actually with the millennials, and it was really fascinating, right? And it left me wanting more and more and more. And I read a lot. And the other thing is, I have a 21-year-old and I have a 13-year-old, and they're very different, very different. So I'm always.
So you're doing your R&D at home.
Well, a lot of it, but
that's interesting.
A lot of it, because the other side of it too is as a company, we try to stay on trend, because what's happening besides the marketing, right? So I'm staying ahead in the marketing, but these kids come and live with us.
Right.
And each year it's a little bit different, right? So when I was running a building, I would have moms come into my office and be like, I just was in my son's room and it was dirty. When are you going to go vacuum it? Or when is it going to get vacuumed? I'd be like, just as soon as he comes down and signs out the vacuum cleaner.
Oh,
right?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And then he's all set. And, people calling, my daughter's light bulb blew out. Could you go change it? No. Right? So every year it's a little different. Like you hear, right, of the helicopter parents that turn to backpack parents that turn to.
Wait. What's a backpack parent?
So you want to carry all the problems, right?
Oh.
You're carrying all the problems.
No shit.
Yeah.
Backpack parent.
And then, the helicopter is
helicopter parent, I know.
Right?
I'm trying to figure out what parent I am.
Right. That's exactly. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
And then, so through all these years, I'm like, I'm not going to be that parent. I'm not going to be that parent.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be that parent, but I'm sure I am in some ways. But, and then we got to the point where parents just did not want their kids to have any problems. They would take it on for them. And part of what we do, because colleges do also.
Which generationally, are you seeing more of one? So is it like, hey, you have the baby boomer parent. Is that like the backpack
That was
parent?
more helicopter.
That's helicopter.
I think, yeah, that's helicopter.
Okay.
And then we go to backpack from there. I don't even know what it is now.
Backpack is a millennial parent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Backpack's millennial.
Yeah. And now kids they don't need parents. They can do everything themselves.
They're being raised by AI.
It's more, right. But it's more.
That's the future.
They're more self-sufficient.
Yeah,
they don't need
that's true.
somebody to change their light bulb. I mean, when I was in college, if I would have called my dad and said my light bulb was burned out, he would be like, so?
Yeah.
Why are you telling me this,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
And I think it's getting back there. I mean, students are coming in. They're making the choices of where they're living, right?
Yeah.
They're picking it. They're taking more responsibility.
Well, so you're seeing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, okay.
To a certain point. I mean,
so today's decision maker, this is interesting. So 20 years ago when you started, the decision maker was the parent.
Yes.
Hard stop on that. Parent.
Yes.
Today, it's the student.
It's both.
But
what we found, we just did this really great project this summer. Really great project. We had an intern, we hired an intern, and we did this video testimonial project.
Okay.
Now, the point of doing this video testimonial project was to get testimonials that were more conversational, right? And not the, hi, I like EHS because.
Yeah.
So we thought we had all these people come to us as groups of friends that we contacted them. And we did it 3 different series, right after they checked in when they were all excited, after they've lived with us halfway through, and before they left. So that was the point. But we got so much out of this, so much more than I ever expected.
That's awesome.
It was a huge focus group, and it's all on video.
And they're excited to tell their story.
And what we found is a lot of people, their number one thing for us was about safety, security. That was like a big draw. But it was also a lot of the people told us they were looking at us and they knew they could take it to their parents and their parents would approve. So they're finding it and they're finding what they think, of course, their parents are going to approve. And their parents are like, great, we approve, you can live there.
I'm glad you actually brought up safety and security because, one misnomer for a lot of parents, and we struggled with this with you, right? And trying to help you solve this, is the brands that different areas of the city carry.
Right.
Harlem, Brooklyn, and it's insane. And I compare it to like, I'm a car collector, so I look at brands like back in the day, Hyundai was like, oh man, Hyundai? Like, that's like unreliability all over the place, right? And now you have that brand which created this new luxury brand called the Genesis. And it is an incredible, incredible car. All luxury, beautiful components, great. But still, it's hard when you have a boomer who knows Hyundai for unreliability, who can't wrap his head around this Genesis. Can't. To him, it's like lipstick on a pig.
Right.
But to the millennial, they don't have that history with that brand. Right. So you have the same thing happening here, where Brooklyn today is not Brooklyn 15 years ago or 20 years ago. The parents' Brooklyn or parents' Harlem or parents, all these different boroughs.
Right.
How do you, again, talking about safety and security, what's the strategy behind, I mean, you're doing actually your part in helping rebrand these areas for what they are today, which is completely safe and secure. And like these amazing places where communities are thriving, bustling. And, it is not, and we were just talking at the coffee shop, how, when you're a 20-year-old girl, the crazy shit that was happening.
And
you were
on this street.
Right here on this street, on this block. And you were like totally oblivious because it's that 20-year-old blood. Right. And now we're talking about as we age, the fear creeps in. And, we would be like running for the hills, right? If something like that happened today.
Absolutely.
So what do you, what's that challenge like for you, right? And how are you like combating that whole rebranding and kind of reshaping for the parents and decision makers?
It's, I think, finally coming to the conclusion of, because, we had every different CEO that comes in, right? We're a real estate company. We're this, we're that. Making everybody realize that we're not selling buildings. We're not selling rooms. We are selling an experience.
Yeah.
And where do you want that experience to be, right? Where is your day-to-day life going to take you? Are you going to be on the west side, on the east side, in Brooklyn, here? Do you want a quieter lifestyle, right? Brooklyn Heights is gorgeous. Gorgeous.
I remember you showing me the photos of the building. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah. But you tell people Brooklyn, they're like, so we're selling the experience because that's what you're getting. You just happen to live in this building or that building. So
is the goal to get them there? When does the convincing start happening of, hey, this is not the Brooklyn, your mom or dad or your idea of this? Because these are mostly out of town kids coming into
and that
the city.
is still a obstacle for us. That still takes us a while because people hear Manhattan. We've had people say, well, I want to live on the Upper East Side because I'm interning on Wall Street. We're like, no, you don't. It's really 7 minutes
Yeah.
door to door from Brooklyn Heights to Wall Street. And they're like, no, but I was told I should live in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Right? If we can get people there to the building and to that area, they're sold. They fall in love with it. Right?
Yeah.
So it's
a challenge, but you've done a great job.
It's our visuals, it's our video, it's our photographs, it's the campaigns we set up, right?
Correct.
And we do that. We'll set up just a Brooklyn campaign.
Yeah.
We'll set up just a, neighborhood campaign. Well, we spoke about that, right? And about somebody walking around and
100%.
talking and videotaping.
It's just interesting, right? That some of these evolutionary markers still exist, and the stigmas are kind of hard to kill.
Right.
But I mean, you guys have done kind of an incredible job also being a community leader, right? And helping kind of stimulate that process to, ensure the safety of these kids. And I mean, I'm a parent, you are too. I know what that's like.
Originally, that's how the company started, right? Like the company was going into old SROs.
Right.
And saying, we'll take this building.
Can you explain what an SRO is?
Oh, a single resident occupancy.
Not for me.
So
but for everyone listening.
So, we were going into places that had maybe 20 people living in a building of 500 or, and we keep the permanent residents there, but the building is falling down.
Right.
It's in horrible shape. You can't get anybody else to come live in it.
Right.
So we would go in and we would fix the building up. We would bring a student community in. We would beautify the neighborhood, on that block, bring vibrance in, bring students in, help businesses. And that's really how it started.
It's beautiful. And it's important to know that you guys are a nonprofit organization.
Yes.
So
everything goes right back into the experience and the buildings.
And I mean, it's kind of critical mention to how you operate, because that is part of the heart of why you guys are, I believe, so successful is you're incentivized by continuing to double down, triple down on that experience.
Well, that's a really good point, because, the other part of it is, and we're going back to trust, is getting parents to trust us, right? That their child is going to live in a building with us.
Right.
And they're a face and a name to us, right? They're not just coming home to an apartment. Nobody knows if they don't come home. If they do come home, we can check all of that if need be. But we're providing a community within the building. So with all students, we do the events, we teach them how to do their laundry, because they still need that when they first come in.
I was one of those kids. I'm an only child, all right? It was like, I had a mom and she's not here.
Right. What do I do with this machine?
What do I do?
A quarter?
Detergent? Okay.
But we teach them that.
Yeah.
How to use the subway. It's an instant community of people and help. It's independent living with tons of staff around if you need something.
Just New York is just uniquely different in that way. Going to a traditional university and getting a dorm room and all that.
And a traditional campus.
Traditional campus that just is not part of the culture here. It's different.
Right.
So what are the major universities and major companies that you service? Are you able to mention that?
Yeah. Pace University has always been a really big client of ours for years. They've been with us. They started with us in Brooklyn Heights. They've been with us since 1996.
Really?
In some way, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they were a really big one for us. But we're also, we're also housing, I don't know if you know this, universities outside of New York City.
I did not know that.
That are bringing groups, right, to New York City. And they like us because they've just, parents have just sent their kids to Duke University, and the professor's like, we want to pick them up and take them to New York for this program.
Oh, wow.
And so they like us because we were like, okay, but it's a student community.
Right.
So Duke University has been with us since the late 1990s, Northeastern, Syracuse.
Wow.
So we have a lot of outside people as well as the ones in the city.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And then corporations too, right? For the interning programs that you have.
Right.
Yeah.
And those I can't mention.
Right. But they are just some of the names that you've mentioned to me, major partners that you guys align with, and incredible programs that you're a part of. And I want to bring back, I mentioned we'll come back to some of the personal challenges that you faced as kind of a leader.
Okay.
my mom had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
You had stage 4 breast cancer.
3.
Stage 3 breast cancer. And one thing that I found super interesting with your journey and looking at my mom as well, and there's some comparative analysis I did in my head. When I got the news, it was shocking. I was in tears. I was telling Nico, I'm like, hey, I remember where I was. I was in California. I was dining with the girl that I was dating at the time. He called me. It shattered my heart. And after that, watching how the person with the cancer and going through it all becomes the pillar of strength for everyone else around them was like a little bit of a conundrum for me. Like, I watched you and you're leading this company and you're doing it gracefully, right? Grit and grace, which
Just
is the
without
theme.
hair.
I mean, it's like the theme of this podcast for a reason,
Right,
grit
right.
and grace, because you were graceful in that whole process, right? You were a pillar of strength as a leader of EHS, critical leader of EHS, at home for your children and your family and your husband, your partners that were outside and your friends, us, Sky, and all your other partners and friends. But you're the one that's fighting the fight. What is that like?
Well, thank you for saying all of that. And I remember the day that I got the call from you after you had found out. And that was, I can't even tell you how much that meant.
Oh.
It's stuff like that, like when you're going through something like that and people will actually like acknowledge it, feel it, and offer support. And that was huge. That was so huge. So thank you for that.
You're totally welcome.
I will never forget that.
I
will never forget that.
You're totally welcome. I'm sucking in tears again.
Yeah, me too.
Damn it.
Me too.
You ever see those cartoons where the dude like sucks the tear in? Like,
but
suck it in.
It's especially having that person, that male, right, who talks about their mom.
Yeah.
As well, my mom, because I have 2 sons, I have 2 boys. So boys don't always talk as much, right? So just that was really helpful for me too, like hearing from a son's point of view.
Right.
And what that meant to you when your mom was going through it and how that affected you. And that was huge. That was really, really big for me.
It's crazy, right? You again, going back to the 15 years, it's when it gets personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sucking the tear in. Help.
Yeah. But I felt like I had no control over that. Right? You're diagnosed one day and 2 weeks later, you're strapped in a chair getting chemo. Shit. And you're like, what just happened? And, it's all moving so fast. And I remember my mom saying to me, because I'm like, I don't even have time to think about this. And she's like, oh, it's so wonderful. I'm like, what is wonderful? She goes, you just found out and you're getting treated right away.
Oh my God.
She's like,
didn't even think of that.
That is amazing. She goes, do you know how long it takes people in other areas to get treated, to see a doctor?
Yeah.
She's like, you've seen 2, you've made a pick, and you've got a whole plan laid out.
Yeah. I mean, I lost my best friend to cancer it's a year and a half ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
8 months, neuroendocrine carcinoma stage 4. And she's absolutely right. It was too late. It was too late.
Yeah.
And cancer is just such a nasty thing. But
so I couldn't control any of that, right? And I wanted to show up at work.
How did you show up as like this, literally this pillar of strength? You just showed up, kind of.
I don't know if I always was. Some days I shut my door, but
you played the part
because I wanted to keep something normal.
Okay.
That was my normal.
See.
I could go to work, right? I looked different, but I could go to work and be Faye and do my job. Right? And everybody expected me to do my job because I'm there to do my job.
Was it like your peace zone to kind of get away?
It was my normalcy.
It was your normalcy.
That was my normalcy. If I didn't do that, I would probably sit at home and feel sorry for myself. And right, you have the time to like
Self-loathe and all of that.
dwell on it and
Why
get
me?
really
and all that,
depressed.
yeah.
And so I would do it. That's what it was. It was my normalcy. When it was time for radiation, I scheduled it all for like 6:30 in the morning. I would go for radiation, get on the train, go to Brooklyn, go to work.
Look, I'm going to say something I think is a little, not crazy, but do you think that maintaining that like normalcy is a little bit of a hack in fighting what you fought?
I think it's
Positive
for
thought,
me,
right? I
well,
think
it's that, but I think everybody has their own hack to do what they have to do to get through it. Like
What
some
was
people
yours?
don't work, right? Because they need to be at home. They need that time. I worked because that's what I needed to do. That was my normalcy. But then afterwards, right, when you're done with everything and you're done, that's when you start processing it. Because you didn't process it during it, right? So it's the after that you process it. And then you start looking at things differently, right? Like even work situations, like, is that really a big deal? Probably not. Can we fix it? Can we change it? Probably. Or no, or yes, right? It's just accepting what a situation is and dealing with it.
Would you say
So that
it's
kind of transfers over.
Would you say it's the biggest battle you've probably ever fought personally?
It's the biggest thing I've ever had to go through. I don't know if I would call it a battle or a fight.
Really?
Yeah. Because
Why is that?
Because it's cancer, right? You can't really fight it. You go through the process, you're in it, right? And you
Okay.
sort of fight to
This
like
is interesting.
just
Okay.
stay positive and
Yeah.
stay whatever, but you can't always win it, right? Like your friend didn't die because she didn't fight hard enough,
Right.
right? It's because of the cancer. So it kind of takes it kind
Wow.
of puts
That
the
yeah.
responsibility onto
Mhm.
someone of like, well, you didn't fight hard enough or you weren't positive enough.
Oh,
And it's
shit.
cancer, right?
I didn't.
So-
I mean, I'm kind of mind blown. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, well, I never did either until, I never did either. I would have been like, woohoo, fighter,
Yeah.
go
Right,
warrior.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Battle one, I scored.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you're not fighting. Yeah, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
wow, yeah.
So
It's kind of an incredible way to reshape that thought. I never thought
you
of it
can't
that
always
way.
win the battle. And it's not because you're not fighting. You can't
Right, because
fight
you're
it.
putting ownership in this like insane pressure on yourself.
Exactly.
And then,
you
you're
feel like,
oh,
I wasn't strong
I
enough.
lost it.
I'm losing. Yep.
That's actually
Yeah.
shitty vernacular. I lost the battle. That we need to change that. Like for cancer, that has to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
You do everything you can to follow, like you said, those principles and guidelines of doing
Right.
the right things
Right.
and getting the right treatment, but it's not a fight. Wow.
So when you're going through the process, right, and going through the treatment and you're doing whatever hack you can do to get you through it, right?
But you're this incredible leader. And I still want to go back to this like pillar of strength and what everyone else saw, because, we're not privileged and shouldn't be to those private moments that we all have. I've had those tremendously weak moments myself, right? Going through mom's cancer, incredible divorce, dad's. I mean, life is always constantly happening around you, but you have to lead.
Right.
You have to move forward. You have to be that pillar of strength. And, when you self-reflect, and again, just knowing you for the last 15 years and being in the trenches with you and celebrating the wins with you and the losses and the challenges and all the shit that we go through as a business,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of motivates you to just push forward and say, you know what, I'm just not going to do it today? I have those days, trust me, where I'm just like, I don't feel like doing it today, but I still do it.
Right. You still do it, but every now and then you don't do it. And that's more of like a self-care. Like if you can recognize like, I just need a day to shut off, clear my head, then you come back the next day stronger, right? Because you're clear-headed, you've rested, you've whatever, you've done whatever you
So
need
you've
to do.
paid a lot of attention to your mental health.
I've had to,
Okay.
in the past, probably more in the past year than when I was going through it, right? And going through it, it was also trying to be
Because you don't recognize the
strong.
damage that it's, or what, it's like looking at the city after the storm has passed. When you're in the storm, you're not concerned about what's
Right.
the damage that actually happened.
Right. Well, yeah, and it was more, it was very surreal, right? Because I felt like I would be like coming home from treatment and I'm in the car and I'm looking at everybody on the sidewalks and you're like, gosh, this is so weird. Like, I'm going through this thing. I can die. And all these people.
Things just keep going on.
Right. And it didn't upset me. I just noticed it, right?
Yeah.
But what was scarier, I realized, is when COVID hit. Because then things stopped. Right?
Right.
And it really hit me because I was like, before, just me, I'm going through something and the world's going on. Everybody's going on. And now the entire world has stopped. And you start realizing I'm this teeny tiny little speck
Yeah.
in all of it. And it was scary when the world stopped.
Oh, yeah.
That was scary.
Super scary.
So.
And you were in the central scare zone, by the way. And this is New York. It was the.
Right. And I was still having treatment. And
Yeah.
I was still,
Oh, shit. You were still having treatment.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So
the world shut down with the most deadliest, craziest,
and then
wildest
I have to keep
disease.
going on, right?
You're going on. Your immune system's compromised as it is. What an absolute
but you realize
hurricane.
what a little speck we are.
Yeah.
But also, when you were talking about, being strong and your kids and your family.
Yeah.
My kids always had this attitude of, well, we know you're going to be okay. Like, okay. Like,
Did that help you?
It confused me.
Really?
Yeah, it really
I'm curious
confused me.
about that.
And
So-
even after, they're like, because I'm like, you never really talked about it. You haven't processed it.
Yeah.
And they're like, but we knew you were going to be okay. And I was like, how did you know that? Because I didn't know that. And they were like, you didn't? We thought you knew that. We knew you were going to be okay. Now, the effects have come out later, right? It's come out in other ways
Right.
with each of them. But their thing was, you're going to be okay. So I had to go with that all during my treatment. Yeah, I'm going to be okay, I guess. That's what they say.
They say it.
They
it's
say
fact.
it. It's
Yeah, it's a lot of mind blowing. You shifted my perspective on. a few
But they're
things.
going back to
It's
trust
crazy.
again, right?
Yeah.
They were trusting. Doctors say you can do this.
I don't trust doctors.
No.
No. Look, we're business people. I'm a capitalist. I have to be.
Right.
I run a for-profit business, and medicine has become that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember taking mom to cancer doctors, and luckily I have oncologists in my family.
Right.
Which and so I called my family member and I was like, hey, which test do I have to do? How do I operate? Got mom on the phone. I had my own little militia of
Right.
Navy SEALs of doctors. Good part about being Indian, right? We have plenty of those. So tab that, and then as I have no clue about insurance and all of this and all that. I'm
Right.
like, Mom, what insurance? So as I'm going and taking mom to these doctors, there was one physician, I'll never forget this, who was so insistent on giving mom chemo when she didn't need it. To the
Right.
point where he started negotiating with me on how much chemo we could possibly get her. Well, you don't have to do 6, we could do a 2-month. I'm like, dude, are you playing Russian roulette with my
Yeah.
mom?
Right.
What are you
Yeah.
doing? Right? And I'm like, the Oncotype DX test says this. Her recurrence score is so low, right? And I had the Indiana State Board of Medicine for Oncology review her case. 14 physicians roundtabled it, and they were like, no. And I have this idiot who's telling me
Right.
I should buy chemo like it's a Toyota at a dealership. It's like, hey,
Right.
don't take the Camry, take the Corolla. Walk out with something. I'm like, you got to be kidding me here. But
Right.
and my mom got really emotional about the fact that she's like, I can't believe if I didn't have you and this whole network and we didn't have the financial fortitude and the
Right.
connections,
Right.
like I would be sitting and as I walk in to do my radiation, I see the people lined up doing chemo when I didn't need it.
Right. Well,
Like, holy
that's
shit.
the big
They
thing,
don't have that
right?
network
It's
to support
so
them.
many people don't. And that's when you really realize how privileged you are.
To have a
right?
support
To
system.
have a support system or to have insurance or to
Yeah.
have the money and have the ability to question, right? So I've changed my whole view on doctors through this as far as, I grew up with parents who were like, you do what the doctor says. If the doctor says you do this, you do this.
Yeah.
Like you trust the doctors,
Yep.
right?
I grew up the same way.
Well, I question the doctors, right? Because
Yeah.
that's that generation, right? But you question. And I really realized during this that the doctors are there to advise.
Yes.
That's what they are. They're advisors.
Yeah.
And you have to, and unfortunately, that's where you're privileged because not everybody can, you have to take the responsibility of looking into their advice. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I listen to this? Do I listen to that?
Another piece of critical
Right?
information that it is
They're
advice.
there.
You're right.
It's advice. That's
It's
really
not,
what it is.
But the problem is, Faye, that today, the way I was, and my mom and family, you take a physician's word as God's
Exactly.
word.
Yeah.
When they say it, it should, because they're the professional. We're not doctors.
Right.
We're marketers.
But now my parents are changing their tune on that. Like,
really?
yeah. Because I'm like, it's advice. We're going to look into this. We're going to look into this. They're like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a podcast of wisdom. I'm getting, right? A lot of
Wise
wisdom.
old podcast.
It's true. It's true.
But it's advice.
It is advice. Yeah, and I think that's what got me to get angry and create this mistrust. But now I kind of, that's my conditioned self, right? Is like the trauma of that experience goes to directly mistrust. But if I kind of.
But you trusted yourself and you did what you did to find out she didn't need chemo, right? So this was just some person.
Correct.
Who told you something wrong.
Right. But like what the beauty of what's happening now is if I self-reflect on that time, I should have just looked at it and been like, it's advice.
Right.
My perspective wasn't that it's advice.
Right.
It's not, it's happening now. As you're telling me, I'm going back there.
Well, I had to go through all of that to realize.
Yeah. But it's like when you look at, now I self-reflect, I'm like, yeah, it was advice. I can't be so angry and be mistrustful. There's nothing to not trust if it's just advice.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
There's nothing to not trust if you shift your perspective on what the physician is saying to you and you're like, this is advice.
Or anyone, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. All right. Lots of lessons that I've learned today. I'm really seeing. I think I asked you a too black and white question where I'm getting the answer of why you're so good at what you do. I think you carry a lot of wisdom. It's coming out
I'm old.
No, you're experienced, right? I mean, I see, certain young people, which I would have discounted before in terms of they don't know much or whatever. And sometimes I feel like my own parents are like, oh, they're too young. But I see different people of different ages that have lived a lot of life with a lot of experience that come out with a lot of wisdom.
And I don't have an ego. Like, I do to a certain point, of course, but I don't have an ego as far as I'm not going to pretend I know something that I don't. And I feel like, you just always learn from people, right? And it's the listening, not the talking, right? It's the listening. Yeah. And that's what I always am trying to tell to my kids. Like, don't respond to me for the sake of responding when I'm talking. Just listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, we can't talk." I'm like, "No, that's not
no,
what
it's
I'm saying."
It's a great point. It's a great point. Humility breeds the most successful leaders that I've ever seen. I think those are the individuals that are open enough to say, hey, I don't know everything. I'm going to put, and this is what you've done, right? And I say with a lot of the client partners that I have and my people in my organization, it's always some sort of self-reflective person on the other side. And I feel like you're one of those. Like for me, you carry a lot of the qualities that are dear to me and how you hire, how you think, how you lead, your reactions. I mean, you're just so chill. Like it could be a storm coming. You just look like you're calm. You're like, okay, I'll figure this out. You might be freaking out and you may close the door and freak out with me. But when we open the door, we're like,
it's all under control.
It's all good. There was no freaking out.
We had one of those situations. We had a big one of those situations.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of it's just, it's just leadership and the qualities that you've exuded, right, over the past 25 years, taking this company from, as you said, cleaning a bathroom, right?
I did.
To, the most successful student housing company in the world. Bravo. I mean, wow.
Thank you.
It's pretty incredible. And it's special to be part of that journey.
And a big part.
Thank you.
I mean, really. I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
It's huge.
Yeah. I think going back to the glitz and glam of like why I'm doing this, when I spoke with Nico, I'm like, hey, look, and we're calling this the House of Bakshi, right? And I was like, we really need to pull the curtain behind what makes these business titans successful. And it's here and a combination and the battle of who leads and when, right? And I keep learning that as I'm doing like just a few of these podcasts. And I was interviewed myself by Nick Crown, who has a top 10 business podcast. One of the things I'm learning is the people that know how to balance heart and mind are the ones that continue to win. Continue to win. They are the ones that keep having this consistent track record of just doing the right thing. Because both have different agendas, right?
Right.
The mind has an agenda that sometimes the heart is not aligned with. The heart has an agenda that the mind is not aligned with.
And then you got to throw the gut in there.
And which one is the gut? Is that the combination of the two?
Just a feeling.
Just a feeling,
Just
right?
a feeling.
Man, I do a lot of gut reaction shit, First
Just
2
a
minutes,
feeling.
it's just true. It's just the first 30 seconds, I know. I'm like, I like this person. I'm going to get along with this person.
Right.
Usually it's right. Sometimes
it's not, right?
Sometimes there are some errors. What's the most fun part about running this division in EHS for you? And what's the most challenging?
So I think the most fun part for me, which can also be the most stressful, right, is the goal, right? So leading up to summer, it's like we have to make X amount of revenue.
Right.
Right? That's the fun part for me, even though it's the stressful part because we're selling beds one by one by one by one. But we need to, in order to make this company go on, pay the bills and put things back in for students, we need X amount of revenue. So it's getting to the goal. And then, of course, reaching the goal. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Right? And then being able to turn around and tell everybody who was a part of it, look what we just did.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Is it the
And I love that.
Is it the challenge part of that, which is like the most fun?
Well, the challenge part is fun, but part of what the challenge part is goes back to the collaboration, right?
Right. Correct.
Which is fun, like the ideas and the, like I said, we had a great meeting with Liz yesterday and we all left so excited because we came up with the most incredible ideas for our, to start off our 2024.
Yeah. So you're a conceptualizer.
Marketing.
You love the ideation part too. Because
I do. I love it.
You're a creator.
I love it.
You're a creator. I mean,
but then
think
I need
back,
somebody to put it together. And, right?
But you like being the vision lady.
Oh, I love it.
I'm thinking about this now,
it.
and I'm looking at every iteration of the website, all of the designs, the lead gen strategies, the everything that you do, you're this vision girl, that lady, whatever, that, because 15 years, right? It's evolved. I was a little boy. I don't even know, like, am I a man to her? Like, what does she see me as? I don't know. She's like looking across this thing, like, it's the kid. Yeah, so, yeah, that's interesting, right? It's like you put a lot of architects around you to make you must have a lot of fun.
And I want to be able to do this, but I don't. Jacob?
Yeah.
Jacob's like, oh yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
Let me just give me a whiteboard.
Yeah.
It's
so fun.
I do like it.
It's
so really fun when you work with people who can make it happen and say it's possible. Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. Well, the fun part about
that's fun.
Being on my side is when people like you, these super intelligent, strong leaders come up with an idea and we haven't thought about it, but we're like, wait a second, we can do that. And we end up learning something and we end up adopting it and we're like, oh my God, this is really cool.
Because it's all, everybody has the same objective, right? In a business, usually like customer service and, good customer service brings in sales.
100%. And
everybody wants, good customer service.
Faye,
they want response.
This is like a 4-hour discussion of customer service. And literally, this is why we're special too.
Right.
Because we simply, and how crazy of a concept of this to actually just give a shit. Isn't that a crazy concept? It's crazy. We give a shit. That's why we win. She's right. Customer service.
Yeah. And that, going back to talking about generations, right? Gen Z, what do they want in a brand? Authenticity.
Yes.
That's what they want. And they can weed it out like that.
Yes.
They don't want anybody being fake. They don't want anybody.
Transparency, authenticity, feeling like they're a part of something, a movement, something cool.
They have this like limitless supply of stimuli and then a limited supply of time. And they can scroll through ads and scroll through pop-ups, scroll through everything like no one can and weed it right out, right? So you have to be authentic. You have to do something where they're like, this is real. This relates to me,
convey authenticity instantly.
Right.
What the hell does that even mean?
And something, though, that speaks to them because they're more about, sustainability and what a company's mission is, right?
Yes, that's true.
They study that.
Yeah.
And they want to know that your values are aligned with theirs.
Do they ask you questions? Like, does your team get questions like this?
Sure.
No shit.
Especially recently. And in the past 2 years, I've been with the company for 25 years, never ever until the past 2 years, and it keeps happening.
What's like the wildest question? Are they do you have a LEED certified building? Are you built eco-friendly?
Is we send them a license agreement, right? Which is a lease.
All right.
And they have to sign the lease.
Okay.
Right? You get a lease, you sign your lease.
You sign the lease.
You look at the highlighted part, you sign your lease.
Totally.
They go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And they say, and we've had 2 or 3 people point this out. The way this is worded, it doesn't really tell me exactly that there's the bathroom in the room. It says it's a private bathroom, but is it private to me down the hall? Because I'm going to have it in my room. So you need to change the wording. There's that. Or they just pick it apart.
They're lawyering you?
Yeah, they pick all of it apart. And, it's like crazy because it's like no one does this, but it's also like awesome. You're reading the fine print.
Yeah.
Like, I don't read the fine print.
Yeah.
Like, that's really good.
Or they might just be putting it in ChatGPT, let's be honest. These kids, we don't know.
They keep pulling all this stuff out. So that's something that's really changed.
Yeah, that's wild.
But yeah, they take a look they'll tell us, well, we looked at who you are. You're a not-for-profit. We see you've got diversity. We see this. We see that.
Yeah.
It speaks to them.
And they
see
care.
the pictures, right? Like the pictures, and there are real people, are real students. They're like, okay, there's everything here.
And at the end of the day, these questions that are helping them validate and do their own kind of sales convincing to get to their conclusion. It's interesting decision making from when from how I did it, right? in our
But they're
generation.
also putting it on the company, right? Like prove it to me, show it to me, which maybe isn't wrong, but taking everything that you said before about, when you lead, it's with the mind and with the heart and with the gut, and it's about experience and it's about listening. And how do you take all of that and convince these younger generations? Like, you know a lot because you have all this stuff at your fingertips all day long, but there's so much to be said for experience and knowledge and your mind and your heart and your gut.
Living and your
it's
housing
like,
is a huge decision. Huge decision. So what you're saying, it's absolutely challenging, right? To convey that and in this instant authenticity.
right.
Again, I still don't know what that actually means, but I think I'm getting a grasp of it. It's conveying in these sound bites or these little bites what you stand for and evoking this like emotion. Because I think
And what I'm going to get for my dollar, right?
Right.
And value. You're not just pretending there's all this stuff there and then
Yeah.
I'm going to get there and no one lives there
No one-
but me.
Right.
Right? Like,
stage
it's
it
just
with
a
50 people.
room.
Right.
So they know,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're telling me the truth. This
Yeah.
is what my experience is going to be,
Yeah.
which is what so much we got from those, video testimonials. So now we have all these little clips. So besides the big project that I was doing, we have these little clips and we have a little video library going, right? So there's one about safety, one about community, these quick, like 5-10 second clips
Yeah.
about each like thing that was really important. And now we're using those videos, we're turning them into our campaigns,
Right.
They're going into our emails. Into
You know,
our
as I'm
e-blasts.
listening to you, I'm now realizing that being in marketing, right, the industry that we're in, multi-generationally, is like raising a kid. I'll tell you why.
It is, yeah. Tell me.
As you raise a kid, your perspective on how you approach them every 6 years has to change. So
Or less.
Or less, right? When my son was 5 versus him now being 10,
Right.
I spoke to him differently. I empathized with him differently. I related to him differently. Now that he's 10, it like completely shifts. The paradigm's starting to shift.
Right.
The conversational element
Right.
of how we discuss things is more rooted in substance. He's contemplating things where he wants respect from me. He wants different levels of autonomy, which I
Yes.
still like. You got to, as a parent, figure out how to give that to them and still set boundaries.
Yeah, it's big.
Right. And now you take that and you
And then it
apply it
goes
to,
on.
and you apply it to, exactly. And you have to shift, like the kid hits puberty. Holy crap. Now they think they're an adult. Now you have to treat them as, I look at multi-generational marketing and I'm like, we have to change our strategy every 5-6 years.
Right. Right.
It's crazy. The way
Right.
they were looking for EHS as a service 20 years ago, 10 years ago,
Exactly.
6 years ago, versus how they're consuming information now
It's so different.
is so different. So I think there is some badassery to be part of this business in a multi-generational seat. So kudos for you on that too, because it's crazy.
Well, what we sell, the experience, like for the millennials, right? We were like, we're safe, we're secure, we have student life events.
Because that's what they cared about.
You can network. And they're like, yeah, no, I'm pretty good. I just need a room.
Oh,
Now, yeah.
Okay.
Now
They
these
want that.
kids are like, wow. And I don't know if it's some of it is an after effect of COVID, right? Like I've met all these people and there's this community and it's so great and I get to have fun all the time and I'm
Interesting,
constantly around people, right? Like Gen Z and then of course
Interesting. So you were
the
ahead.
Alpha,
right.
they're all about socializing.
So you were ahead of the game
So-
with that marketing campaign with the millennials, but you took that and you're like, oh, well, wait. This one will work for Gen Z.
Well, it's what we sell,
Right.
right? It's who we are. But it's just meant different things, I guess, to different generations,
Yeah.
right? But it's still, you have to speak to them of where they're going to fit in because everyone's going to fit in. It's student housing. I mean, if you're a student, you're going to fit in. But
Yeah.
it's what's important to them within those services
Totally.
has really shifted, where we're like, wow, that's what we used to try to tell people. Like,
100
come.
100%.
You'll be a member of a community immediately.
And that's where I draw that comparison of raising a kid and multi-generational marketing is exactly what you said. You know, you're trying this approach with the millennial of, hey, we, you know, all of this, you know, we're a community, and they're like, we just need a place to live, versus
Right.
you're like, I'll take this strategy and apply it here, and it works.
Yes.
And that's the, that's the part of, right. I may have some strategies I have deployed on the 10-year-old, which I may have to wait and use it when he's 20.
Oh my gosh.
Self-reflecting. You know, and not to be cliche, but I do want to touch, and I did a interview with someone I respect highly. Her name is NJ, one of the founding partners of APL, Athletic Propulsion Labs. You know, very high-end, luxurious shoe. She enamors me in how she operates and her entrepreneurial spirit. And I do like to highlight on the fact that, you know, we're in this era where strong women should be defined a little differently than how it's marketed. And let me tell you my observation and why.
Okay.
For me, I look at her, who is traditionalist, and a lot of how she operates in her personal life, right? Yet, when she is in the professional room, you know, she embodies every bit of femininity, every bit of the business badassery, and she combines it in this beautiful thing that is authentically woman, which is super cool. And like, I appreciate that about men too, that can be, you know, embody masculinity, embody, you know, things that make men special and operate. And it's, to me, I think these definitions get so clouded of what a strong woman is. And I have a daughter, right? And I look at women like NJ and women like you, and I'm like, man, I want Mira to step in those footsteps of, I can be a mom, I can be a wife, I can embody femininity, I can have these qualities of you know, what traditional, I mean, in modern times, some of these qualities are being accosted, right, and berated, and it makes women feel like shit, right, to like, hey, I want to have a family, I want to have kids, I want to be married, right, and then take that and you parlay that into being a badass, right, in what you do. What's that like for you? Do you ever like think about and self-reflect on that, you know, as you're raising your own kids, and as, you know, being, because you are an inspiration to other, you know, young women that want to achieve something and have all of that, right? Because it can be done.
Thank you. It's funny. I do think about it because there's this whole thing now where people are talking about how like a woman is told, well, you can do it all. You can do it all. You can have kids. You can have a career. You can do this. You can do it all. And it's like, why is it worded like that?
Why is it worded like that?
Like, what is it? Why do I have to do it all? Why don't you have to do it all as a male or as whatever, you know? Why do I have to, why is that a thing?
Right.
That you can do it all.
Thank you for saying it. I'm glad you said it. It's true.
It is. Like, I don't know. So that's an interesting thing. And so I do think about that. But I'll tell you, I never had any career aspirations. Like, I was not the kid who was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I had no idea what I wanted to do. The only thing I knew what I wanted to do was I wanted to be a mother. That's the only thing I knew. Wow. And people would laugh. You know, I'd be like 5. They're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd be like, a mom. That's the only thing that I ever really knew. But you have to start working, right? And you get jobs and you this and you that. And I never graduated from college. I went to college, but I didn't graduate from college.
Wild irony, right? Look at what you direct the largest student housing for universities.
I never graduated from college. I got bored. I can
see that.
And then I started making some money.
Yeah. You're
And I was
22
like,
running these streets over here. Running these streets.
I was like, I think I just want to make money. Am I?
Yeah.
And I remember my son, when he was quite young, he said something to me about college. And I was like, I never graduated from college. He was floored.
Really?
He was upset. He's like, what else haven't you told me? What do you mean you've never?
You're a fraud.
I know. I'm like, I never told you I did graduate from college. Like, what?
Right.
What? But now what's interesting is he reminds me of stuff. If I ever doubt myself on something or doubt this or doubt that, he'll be like, Mom, look at what you've done. Like, yes, obviously I'm not a millionaire or anything, but he's like, you didn't graduate from college.
I mean, it's pretty
But you
amazing.
were able to take care of things and do stuff to take care of the family and to do this and to do that. And you've done so much.
Yeah.
The fact, I think that my son recognizes that is really huge for me. That's huge for me.
I mean, he's watching someone responsible for hundreds and hundreds, you mentioned money, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And it's his mom, right? So that's that's very incredible, right? And that's why I bring it up. It's like you have this huge responsibility. You do it, again, grit and grace, right? You're very graceful in how you do it. It's nice to hear that opinion from you, because I think people need to hear that. Women need to hear that, right? That, hey, don't worry about these bullshit labels and the cultural normalities in the moment. They're fleeting as hell.
Right.
And it'll change in the next 3 weeks depending on whomever's propaganda.
Right.
Right? It's okay to be authentically woman.
Absolutely. And you don't have to. I mean, I've gone through times through my 25 years there where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That was a long time ago. But I don't want to do this anymore. And then you realize, there's this thing, you have to go and work your passion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure to do that. And that was always my pressure, I think, of not being able to say what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be when I grew up.
So how did you stumble into this?
And that all shifted for me when I realized this doesn't have to be my passion.
Okay.
This has to allow me to be able to experience my passions, right? And have the time and have the money and have the this and being able to afford, the time.
Right.
And then I also realized, I really love this, and I wouldn't there's no way I would still be doing this.
Right.
There's so much I love about it now. But,
Yeah.
I did go through a slump in those 25 years,
Yeah.
of course.
But it sounds like this opportunity allowed you to do things where you got to exploit your skills, probably that you were developing or you didn't even know you had.
I learned a lot.
And you learned a lot.
While I was here.
Right.
I learned on the job.
Yeah. I mean, we all.
But it was all to get to here. When I was running the building in my free time, if I was in the office, I would sit there with a pad of paper, right? We were still operating with a fax machine. That's when email first came.
Yeah.
So we were still operating with a fax machine.
Yeah.
But I would sit there with a piece of paper and I would write out all the room numbers.
Yeah.
Who was living where, right? And the dollar amount. So this unit's bringing in this much, this unit's bringing in this much, this one's this month, and monthly. And then I would see, well, you know what? This person's moving out here. If I can fill in with someone else here, then that unit will be full and bring in more money. And that's what I started doing. And then I took it to my boss and said, hey, you know what? If we just XYZ, we can make this work.
It's so insane to hear this, because it's now you're one of the organizations with the most highly technological lead gen marketing automation systems that I know of, right?
And we were with a fax machine.
You're the fax machine. It's the evolution, right?
Yeah,
it's
pretty
nuts.
crazy.
So listening to all of this, you do, a lot of trigger pulling fast. Fast. And can you just talk to me about what are maybe 2 or 3 critical components of making fast decisions and doing it right. I mean, you're going to have some that are going to be wrong, but
Yeah.
you have a lot that are right, and you do it quickly. Is there
Well,
like
I
a little
think
bit of a
it's
secret sauce to that, or?
not being afraid to be wrong,
Okay.
right? So that's one thing. It goes back to gut.
Yeah.
Gut and thinking. And I think thinking like, okay, we could do this like this. What is the worst that can happen?
Right.
And when you realize it's not so bad, you do it.
So you play the
Right?
outcome. You're like, okay, this is what the worst case scenario looks like.
Right.
It's not so bad.
Right.
Pull it.
Exactly.
Huh.
Or if the worst case is really bad, then you're like, well, we'll just go with it.
We'll call Habib.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, with stuff like
Oh,
that, I
man.
also make quick phone calls.
You do.
Like,
I
if we
could
do
just
this, if we do
imagine,
this, if we
right?
do this, if we do this,
Yeah.
you're all in this, right?
I just see you in your contact list. You're like, all right, this guy.
But we do that, like even
Yeah.
like the management team at EHS, because we've all worked together for a really long
Yeah.
time, which is great. And we all really trust each other. And we
Right.
come at something from a completely different way,
Right.
right? Like I'm coming from it from the sales and somebody else is coming from it, from the student life. And then, we've got Joe, who's the treasurer, who's coming from the finances, and somebody else from facilities. And
Everybody with their own agenda, right?
So,
And all
well,
these, yeah.
but we listen to each other.
That's
Like,
great.
I never thought of that. I never thought of that. So, but which one is more important for what we need to get done? Okay, that one. We're going to go with that one.
Do you know
You're
how?
all on board? Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean,
So-
I'll tell you how special that is, because it is probably the vein of a lot of companies' existence to get collaborators
Yeah.
from different departments to say yes, because it's not about the departments. It's about those specific areas. Finance, for example, it's like the left brain, right brain, right?
Right.
And the logic and creative.
Yeah.
To get a creative, I mean, I know my organization, to get a creative, a logic, the bean counter,
Right.
all of these guys playing well together. I mean, I see a lot of hesitant yeses, a lot, right? I look at their face and like, he's saying yes.
Don't
'cause
just
he's-
say it.
Yeah. There's a
Feel
little bit
it.
of scare. Yeah. Let's just take the yes, though. You said yes. You said yes.
No, I'm really lucky because we all work together like that.
Yeah.
And we support each other. And we have the same goal,
Yeah.
right? It's getting heads in beds and then giving them a great experience,
Yeah.
right? It's just like we always describe it as we just pass the baton now, right?
Yeah.
Like we market, we sell, we pass the baton.
Yeah.
And then they pass the baton. And then right? From department to department, and then it's done. Like the whole experience goes through every department.
It's a pretty awesome, seamless system at this point, and how you've grown and how you're acquiring new property. All of it is
Yeah.
it's insanely dialed in. Super, super special. Is there anything else that you would like to cover or ask me while we're together?
I don't think so.
Mr. Nico?
Where do you find these amazing brand directors?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
All right.
Well, actually, though, no, I do want to ask you because I know that one of your many strengths, but a big one, is hiring people, and
Yeah.
you're a mentor to so many people.
Yes. Thank you for
So-
recognizing that.
But I mean, that is huge. Like I said, the team that you put together, it's like you picked, I know you didn't, except for Liz, but you picked them especially for me.
I did.
But,
I did.
and I'm sure everybody that you work with feels the same way.
Well, I use
So-
some cliches, like sayings of, you're part of the thread of our tapestry of how we were born, and that's through, this grit and grind. And it is true. Like, it is examples of working with people like you and what you needed. And I had 3 or 4 of those examples to really understand what does the market value and how do they value it. And being an agency, to have clients that are 10 plus years 15 years, sorry, we're 15 years, holy shit, is not a thing anymore.
Right.
It doesn't exist. And I do some self-reflecting, right? I was talking to Nico about this and Rob, yesterday while we were at lunch. And I'm like, it is because of this culture that I and Jacob have worked so hard in injecting and incepting into our people. And when I talk about our client portfolio and the people that we are partnered with internally being a reflection of both myself and him, and how, and my vision for who we were going to serve and how we were going to serve them was super self-reflective, right? And that allows you to just bring on the right people and put character first and talent second. And so my entire operational standard for bringing people on has been you hire at a character 10. You never let character slip to a 9 or an 8.
Right.
You are out the door. You hire at a talent 5. I can scale talent. Talent has to, it can move slower than others.
Oh, that's a good
but
way
you
to put it. You can't scale character.
You can't scale character. You can't. So you get him at a character 10. And even if you got a 5 and he's moving to a 6, yes, we would like them to pace at a progressive rate. And that can sometimes be kind of a deal killer for, on either side or on the client side or internal hire. But we see this growth from a 5 to a 6 to a 7. And that's the part of the mentoring and just getting the right character. I really, Faye, don't give a shit how talented somebody is.
Right.
And their character is anything less than a 10.
Right. Well, no, and that shows. And the people who work for you stay. They like working for you.
Yes.
And that shows through with how they work with like me and everyone else. It really does. It's very apparent. They're happy they love what they're doing.
Yes. And thank you for actually bringing that up. One of the parts of designing our marketing for the future, and one thing I always hear on the phone is we as companies always get a bait and switch, Habib, right? Which you guys don't do. We get pitched the senior team and this crazy talent, right? And all this crap that we've done and we're so amazing. And then when we start the relationship, we're getting the B squad.
Right.
Or the JV
C.
team or the C.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that from our own branding and marketing perspective, and I'd have these conversations.
But you don't have a B squad.
I don't have a B squad.
That's the thing. You couldn't give anybody a B squad. You don't have a B squad. You just don't have it.
I don't have it. Yeah, we don't have it.
There's no bait and switch.
There's no bait and switch.
Right.
Which is, recently I was on a phone call with a potential partner, and they were like, "Hey, can you bring who's going to be the project lead or the account strategist to the call?" I'm like, "Sure, no problem." And I think they were a little shocked. They were like,
"That was their test."
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, like the person that's actually going to be servicing account. Can you please bring?" I'm like, "Yeah, bring them tomorrow." Oh. It was matter, yeah. They were like, dude, it was the most, in the middle of the call, what did that lady say?
She, Jacob, how is, by the way, I would love for you to just mention a little bit who Jacob is.
Oh, yeah.
But Jacob is just explaining something on the computer really quick, going through Google Analytics, and this lady is just grabbing her hand like she just found love. And she just goes, "Jacob, I fucking love you."
Yeah.
She's not a client.
Yeah.
She's not a client. She's not a client. She heard about us, right? We're doing our screen share. And she goes, "Jacob, I just got to say, I fucking love you." And I'm texting Jacob, right?
His face must have gone.
Yeah, I don't think he knew how to react.
Well, yeah.
And she's like,
Thank
she's
you.
like, "Habib, the first conversation with you and me was incredible. This is insane. What the heck is happening?" And I'm like, is everyone really this traumatized by agencies that they all suck so bad? Right?
Yeah, but you don't have a B squad. So anybody you bring to the table is wow, right?
Yeah.
Like this works.
Truly,
this
yes.
works. This works. This
Yeah.
works. I mean,
I will take that from you
everybody-
because it is
Yeah.
absolutely true. We
it
don't
is
have a B squad.
absolutely
Yeah.
true. And everybody's minds are just ping, 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 always thinking. I've never had a meeting, and I have meetings every week
Yeah.
with Sky Diamond.
Yeah.
Right. But I've never had a meeting where I've left the meeting going, okay, that was a little dull today, or nobody was really engaged today, or even
Yeah.
myself, because you get engaged,
Yeah.
right? Like I might go into the meeting like, I'm a little tired. It's the end of the day, but you quickly get engaged because you have, everybody's talking about something. And now with Vanessa, right? Like she's bringing something else to the table.
Well, the incentive internally, and I think this is important to talk about too. The incentive internally is kind of limitless growth. Hey, use this brand and this platform and these amazing people that are around us. We all are so dependent on each other because we're so damn good at what we do. I have the best of the best because I'm really, really, really good at like one thing, but I suck at all these other things. Where these guys are incredible. And they suck at the one thing that I'm great at.
Exactly.
Right.
It
So
all
we're all
works.
so complementary that it just works. But everyone's 1,000% in their own lane. Right.
But nobody's challenging the other person in their lane.
Right. They're like,
you're in your lane, I'm in my lane.
You keep winning, I keep winning, and we lean on each other, right?
Right. I mean,
an ebb
Liz will
and
be
flow.
like, I think we better call Jacob for that.
Right.
Or
right. And to Nico's point, Jacob Hackberg is our chief digital officer and also my partner in this business. And it's been a
whiteboard extraordinaire.
He's a savant, quirky guy, great guy. I love him to death.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I fucking love Jacob.
Yeah,
I'll say it like that woman.
I
I fucking love you, Jacob.
And that's a wrap on Jake.